And I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. The first item is to establish that we have a quorum present. We have 6 members, including a new member, it looks like, that's here. Can I introduce and welcome Candy Poole?
Thank you.
Hi, Candy. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We're missing 1 member. Don't know if he's going to be here or not, but we have 6, so we can move forward and conduct business. The consent agenda items, the consent agenda the commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items on the agenda have been recommended for approval with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the agenda may require a public hearing, the commission will accept public comment on any item on the consent agenda in one hearing. We're going to pull the Crosswinds subdivision off of the consent agenda. And we're also going to remove the December notes. So the only thing that's on the agenda is approval of the January 23rd Planning Commission meeting notes. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on approving the notes, please come forward. All right, I'm going to close public comment and take a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the January 23rd Planning Commission meeting notes on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Okay. FP 2301 Crosswind Subdivision, SMD 4. A request for approval of a final plat of Crosswind Subdivision, Section 1, Abstract A, 1854, S0326, Survey G. Shumblitz, 1.5 acres, Block 1, Mary Lou Addition, west part of Lot 2 being 29.060 acres.
Okay. Zach Rainbow, Planning and Development Services. This is a final plat for the Crosswinds Section 1. They are final platting 54 new lots here. They've met all the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, and the zoning ordinance. Staff is recommending approval. This preliminary plat was approved at your previous meeting. As you can see, it has a larger section that includes the portions to the north. Again, this was approved at your previous meeting. Staff is recommending approval. Again, they meet all the conditions. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anyone have questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward. State your name and single member district or address.
Russell Gully with SKG, just would be happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval as presented.
Okay, thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this? All right, I'm going to close public comment. I didn't have any questions. The staff had indicated that there may be some public comment on this, so I'll take a motion from anyone that wants to make it.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. All right, regular agenda subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Rezonings and comprehensive plan amendments. The City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings and amendments to the comprehensive plan. Item A, Z2301 Riviera Lane, Single Member District 1, a request for rezoning from the single-family residential RS1 zoning district to 0 lot line twin home and townhome residence RS3 zoning for lots 17 through 40 Block 108, Section 45, Bentwood Country Club Estates, located on Riviera Court, south of Clubhouse Lane.
Okay. Zach Rainbow Planning and Development Services. As you said, this is Z2301 Bentwood, Section 45 Riviera Lane, a request to rezone from the single family to zero lot line and twin home. This is Section 45 of the plat. As you can see, sorry, the current.
Zach, I'm going to put you on pause for just a second. I'm sorry. We can't hear what Zach's saying. If you guys need to step out, go right ahead. Thanks, Brandon. Okay, Zach.
Okay, it's single member District 1, Tommy Hebert, the Bentwood Club neighborhood. Again, Riviera Lane, Section 45, we have highlighted there. And as you can see, it backs up to the Bentwood Golf Club and is surrounded basically by the Bentwood neighborhood and golf club to the north as well. It encompasses a total of 9.6 acres. It is currently single family, as you can see there. It was originally approved in 2020 for the RS1 zoning. 88 notifications were sent out. We received 3 over the weekend, so there are 5 in opposition and none in support. The concerns mentioned by 2 of the 3 were concerns about property values and an expectation of development of it being RS1 and the larger lot neighborhood of the Bentwood area when they purchased the neighborhood were some of the concerns they mentioned. Here's the existing plat. These are the lots that are wishing to rezone. Staff reviewed it pursuant to the comprehensive plan in the neighborhood. The comprehensive plan is neighborhood, therefore it is compliant with that. It was also meets all the requirements in the land development code and the comprehensive plan.
Zach, note 1 says that the proposal is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. Is that incorrect?
That's a typo. It is in
Okay.
compliance. It is neighborhood. So that is the reason it is in compliance. I'm sorry, I've left it in there.
Okay.
The proposed zoning provides for a comprehensive approach for both the residential, providing a mix of housing types in the Bentwood neighborhood, providing a transition of housing for generational, it also economical scale and size of homes and lots. The comprehensive plan identified the community need for mixed-use type of development, including mixed use of type of housing choices within the San Angelo neighborhoods. The area is currently vacant. However, the infrastructure, including the roads, water and sewer, have been fully installed, and most of the surrounding neighborhood is developed with larger neighborhood homes associated with the Bentwood area neighborhood. Again, the request is to rezone to RS3, which allows lots up to 25 by, I believe, 100. So significantly smaller than what is allowed now. RS1 is 50 by 100. So it does allow for smaller lots, which would be the townhome lots. So it allows them to be at closer proximity. One note, let me get to it. So any reconfiguration, it's assumed the property owner or developer will re-subdivide to accommodate those smaller lots. Any reconfiguration and replatting will require consideration and approval by this board. So you will have a chance to, again, review those plans at a future date for any re-subdivision type of new housing developments, et cetera. Again, it's all going to be still single family. However, it allows for twin homes, zero lot lines, and townhomes, as opposed to just residential. Staff does recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. Does anyone have questions for the staff?
Yeah, I do. I got a few. So let's talk about in the presentation, the report, under number 3, where you say compatibility with surrounding area, and I guess our measurement of that. And you use the term transitional zone. What are we transitioning from?
Different types of housing uses, so a larger type housing.
So I disagree. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I disagree with that thought process. To me, a transitional zone would be like heavily trafficked, maybe major thoroughfare to interior of a neighborhood. Is that not correct?
There's different types of transitional zoning. So like an instance you're referencing there, that would be typically, you'd see a lot of commercial transitioning down to a more intense, denser residential to larger scale. This transition was referring to allowing multiple types of housing developments, socioeconomic types, different size lots, and housing availability for the neighborhood, which is what the comprehensive plan called for in the neighborhoods, is
So it's
a mix of houses.
So your opinion doesn't really take into account the surrounding development when you're considering transitional?
Which is the purpose of number 3 question, I believe.
Right, and so it designates it as a transitional neighborhood area. So
But why?
neighborhood is
What's
also.
What's
I
it
think Luke's
transitioning
question
to?
is, what's it transitioning?
It-
What's
it-
around this tract
That requires a
we're
transition.
transitioning to?
You're transitioning to provide a mix of houses as opposed to just one type large lot development. This
Okay.
provides a transition zone of different types of housing development.
I mean, I think I
And-
understand what you're
and
saying.
if y'all-
I don't agree, but
And that's perfect, that's fine, absolutely.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for the staff? Okay, so, just 1 second. We haven't opened up public comment yet, I'm sorry. We're asking the staff questions before we get to public comment. So Joe's asking are you asking what's on the southern end?
Yes.
Is that single family RS1?
That's correct.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt, but maybe we can shed some light and some clarity. There's a lot of concern about this. Maybe give us a chance to come
Sure.
up and
Russell.
speak and kind of explain.
Okay,
And
I'm
maybe
going to
we can
open,
help kind
I'm
of
going to
those-
open it up for public comment.
Good morning, I'm Kevin Collins from Benwood Estates, and I'm sorry this happened. Happy President's Day, by the way. These are the deed restrictions for Section 45, and the deed restrictions were filed back in December, okay? In the deed restrictions, it clearly states that there can be no re-subdivision of the lots. They have to be single-family home. They cannot be townhome. They cannot be twin home. They cannot be short-term rentals. They cannot be condominiums, okay? They have to be single-family only. The only reason we're doing this is to go to a zero lot line thought process, because we require side entry garages in Bentwood, okay? And when we put our subdivision utilities in, we don't do overhead, we do underground. So we have the utility boxes and stuff that sit in between the houses, okay? And in case you guys didn't know, there's been quite a bit of fiber optic guys going around digging in through that stuff. So the thought process was to go ahead and, as we did on Valley View Street, which is a zero lot line specific area, it makes it easier to make the transition to the garage because we require side entry garages in Bentwood. Okay, so if you have the opportunity with a 60-foot lot, but maybe 5 or 6 feet of that has been taken up by a utility box, it makes it really difficult. So what we did is we went back and said, okay, well, we're going to put it on the zero line as opposed to the single-family line. Single-family line is 5 foot and 5 foot on each side. This is on the line and 10 feet between the houses, which gives us the ability to be able to turn in. Most importantly, the deed restrictions that were filed in December state that the minimum square footage for any lot is 2,200 square feet. So no house can be built here with anything less than 2,200 square feet. By way of comparison, section 38, which is right next to that, is on the, and by the way, these are 7,500 to 8,000 square foot lots, and a 2,200 square foot minimum on an 8,000 square foot lot. Backing up to section 38, which are 10,000 to 12,000 square foot lots that have a 2,400 square foot minimum. So these lots only are 200 square feet less than the lots next to them. But more importantly, if you look at the cul-de-sac at the end, which is also in section 45, the minimum square footage for that is 2,500 square feet. So at no point did we have any intention whatsoever of putting in a 25-foot lot. This is simply to establish the zero lot line so we can get side entry garages, which is a higher level of home as opposed to a front entry garage. So that's simply the only reason we're doing this. These deed restrictions were filed in December, so if I get run over by a golf cart today, they still will be in place, okay? So there's no way that you can re-subdivide these lots. There's no way that they can become duplexes or anything like that. It's was a way for us to be able to create a side entry garage, which actually increases the property value as opposed to the potential for front entry. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry this happened. I know these people are all, thinking they were coming in with, it was amazing. I went out of town last week and we talked about 7 people and everybody was fine. I got home and now I'm setting up 25-foot short-term rentals in Bentwood. That is absolutely not going to happen, wouldn't happen, and more importantly, even if I said it's deed restricted, so it can't happen. So, any
Okay.
other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I do have some questions.
Okay?
You said that these are 7,000 to 8,000 square foot lots?
So 60 by 120.
Okay. Why can't you get a 2,200 square foot house with the side garages on the lots the way they're laid out?
It's easier. Actually, to be honest with you, we did it because it gives us the ability for a single-story house in this zero lot line. You can actually put a larger footprint if it's on a zero lot line as opposed to 5 foot and 5 foot. So it actually gives us an opportunity to build a bigger house without having to go into a second story. So it's simply a thought process. We did it on Valley View. Every lot on Valley View is the same way.
And I understand Valley View, but Valley View is really in a completely different area in my mind. The Valley View is a collector street of sorts through that neighborhood. There's a lot of traffic that goes up and down Valley View. There's not, I don't think, or plans for this road to have a lot of traffic on it.
We actually did this in Club Park as well. So zero lot lines are in Club Park and Bentwood as well.
Okay, and Club Park being
Down by the clubhouse.
west of the clubhouse? So wait, let's take Club Park. Can we pull up a map and look at where you're talking about?
I'm assuming.
Isn't that attractive land that's kind of confined within itself? It doesn't have homes that back up to that stretch, does it?
Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, there's homes across the street. There's homes down about Overhill Drive.
Isn't Overhill predominantly, like the beginning part of Overhill, isn't that patio homes?
There's a zero lot line homes
Zero
over
lot
there
line.
too, yes. So all of the lots in section 44 and 45 are 60 by 120. So, I mean, these have already been approved, so it gives us a larger building envelope to go to the zero side.
Okay, so is it the side setback that is the problem
Yes,
with the lots?
yes.
And
It's not the front or the back, it's just the sides.
And it's 5 feet on either side of the side lot under RS1, and it's 0 on RS3, correct?
Yeah, it's 0 on one side, but 10 feet on the other. So you got the same 10 feet, it's just put to the other side. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So you put the house on the zero line, and then there's 10 feet between the houses. Whereas
For the
way it's
driveway
set
side,
for
so there's
RS1, it
10
could be
feet
just
on the
fine.
driveway side and 0 on the other side,
Correct, yes, sir.
okay?
So it basically gives you the same 10 feet, but it's actually better because you can put in a side yard. There's all kinds of things you can do, whereas the 5 and 5 is more limiting. So this actually gives us a better potential for a larger building envelope.
So what are the differences in the front and rear setbacks of RS1 versus RS3?
It depends on the housing type. It can go down as few as 10.
No, I'm talking zoning type. If you have RS1 zoning.
RS1
the front-
zoning is 25 in the front.
25,
Yes, sir.
and rear is what?
20? 20,
20?
yes, sir.
And sides are 5?
5.
And what's RS3?
The front's going to be 10, 15.
It's 15.
15?
I mean, we
And
don't have to
20,
change the.
20
we don't
for
have
the
to change
rear.
the front or back
20 for the
setbacks.
rear, and 0 and 10?
Yes, sir.
0, 10. Okay, but you don't want to change the front or rear setback,
No,
right?
No.
Okay,
I mean, all we're trying to do is set it up to where it actually creates a better overall property,
okay.
so.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, we're still open for public comment. Anyone else wish to speak?
Yeah, Bill Holland, I have a residence that's adjacent to the property, and I think Kevin answered a lot of the questions that probably a lot of us have had, but I had one question that refers to the transition zone, and I'm curious to hear what the thought is, because I believe that the Bentwood Development owns acreage already, maybe not an option, but they already own acreage for additional street or two in future development beyond the, Riviera, beyond this section that we're discussing. And so I am curious if there is a plan in place, because the word transition is kind of gets to my mind, so any information that might be available on that.
Okay, so I'll try and answer that. City Council passed these different type of neighborhoods and type of zones they wish for. So really, it encourages a type of development. So it'd be development-related projects that are brought forward. The city wouldn't move forward with any zonings at this time in these areas to change any type of neighborhood zoning. It'd be development-specific, and it'd give you the opportunity to see these, if it's a different type of development as opposed to standard RS1.
Bill, did that satisfy your request?
Not completely, but maybe that's all that's known. I don't know right now. Kevin might have additional information on that.
Yeah, I've never heard of what transitional zone means. I've never heard that before. But basically, we have a preliminary plat, I believe, correct, with all of the lots for Bentwood. And there is enough to put 2 or 3 more streets back there, but those are all going to be large estate homes. There's no transition. There's no commercial property over there. There's no, the master thoroughfare plan does not go through there. It goes up above. So I can't answer why there'd be any transitional part of it. It's all single-family estate lots.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julia Antley, SMD1 property owner on Enclave. My husband and I currently own a home on the edge of Bentwood on an 8,000 square foot lot. We bought land further into the neighborhood with the idea of upgrading to a larger lot in a less congested portion of the neighborhood. As a note, I did email my opposition for 5309 Enclave on the 16th. As you enter Bentwood, whether it's from the main entrance or Valley View, from Fairway or the entrance on North Bentwood by McCoy's, you find smaller lots with patio homes, townhouses, duplexes, and then move into smaller single-family homes. As you progress through the neighborhood, the lot sizes increase with the home sizes, most of which are custom built. We never imagined, based on that neighborhood layout, that the street next to Enclave would have the type of homes allowed under an RS3 zoning. We wanted more space with a less dense feel, and that's what Enclave currently is. As platted in 2020, some of the homes on Enclave will share a rear fence line with 3 lots on Riviera, adding a congested, high-density feel. Per city code, a single-family RS1 lot size minimum is 5,000 square foot. According to the Appraisal District's website, the average lot size on Enclave from clubhouse through the currently registered built homes is 15,000 square feet. The current platted lots on Riviera are less than half that size, averaging 7,200 square foot. And the proposed RS3 zoning would allow for even smaller lots. For size perspective, the two-story townhouses on Valley View near Stripes are on lots around 2,600 square foot, and the single-family homes on Valley View near North Bentwood are on 9,000 square foot lots. I would argue that neither of those home types are consistent with the single-family homes being built on Enclave, where the houses alone are averaging 3,200 square foot. And yet this proposed zoning change would allow for a lot size far smaller than those two examples. Item 3 in the staff report, as you mentioned, states the rationale is that the zoning is transitional. But as discussed earlier, the neighborhood transitions occur on the outskirts of Bentwood near the entrances. The plat as approved in 2020 has Riviera as the sole street of small lots and then goes back into larger lots. So I'm confused as to what these lots are intended to transition into. As stated already, the existing plat has lots half the size of Enclave lots. So why do they need to be platted even smaller at 1/5 of an acre to transition back to 1/3 of an acre lot size? As the city grows, the next subdivision over that Bentwood connects to is Old Stone Ranch. They have approximately half-acre lots. The next adjoining neighborhood is Butler Farms, with lots ranging from about an acre to over 5 acres. I wish I had been in a position in 2020 to speak against the current plat of the 7,200 square foot lots under RS1, but I cannot change that. I'd at least prefer to keep the 2020 plat and zoning with RS1 lot size minimums rather than the smaller lots and home types allowed under RS3. I know we've heard the current design plans today and the deed restrictions. However, I do think it's important to remember that a zoning classification is attached to the property, not the project. If the developer walks away from this project and a new developer comes in, they could replat the lots to the RS3 minimum of 1,875 square foot lots. That's our biggest concern regarding today's decision, not what's being presented now, but what could be. City Council is always counseled to choose a zoning based on what they think is appropriate for a land area, not on what the current developer is proposing, because anything can change and they could inadvertently approve something they did not intend, and the same is true for all of you. We heard of the deed restrictions, but we haven't seen anything in the background packet, so I do think that could have alleviated some of our concerns. In closing, I just ask that you maybe be creative with your decision. If the idea is truly to have single-family homes, why not approve a variation for these on the easements, but leave it as an RS1 zoning, so the lot size minimum would at least stay at 5,000 square feet to better fit into the existing neighborhoods. I still think the lots will look out of place compared to those double the size one street over, but it wouldn't be as drastic as if the lots were platted to under 2,000 square foot as would be allowed under RS3 zoning. Like many people, our home on Enclave will be our biggest asset. Please help us protect the value of our property and help us come to a compromise with the proposed zoning.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to reiterate that the lots as they are have already been approved back in 2020. We're not changing anything with the lots. All we're doing is moving the house over. So there's not any issue relative to, if we vote this down, the lot sizes are not going to change. And the deed restrictions clearly state that there's not a re-subdivision option. So I just think this is a little misunderstanding that we're not trying to do anything relative to the size, and actually it will make the opportunity for a little bit bigger building envelope. So I wanted to clarify that we're not asking to change the lots. We're just going to move the house over. And
Okay.
so,
Thank you, Kevin.
Can I ask a question? I know I'm kind of going out of order, but I have a feeling that the majority of people in attendance today have the same concerns as we've heard. So under the RS3 zoning, even though Bentwood has a deed restriction of what's actually occurring on those lots, are we able to, as a council, say, okay, under this RS3, if it does get approved as that we're only allowing patio homes and obviously nothing else at that point to ease some tension?
But I had the same thought, maybe in just a little bit different direction, but why couldn't we just relax the side setbacks in RS1?
Right.
And instead of rezoning? It sounds
Okay.
like that's the only issue is the side setback.
So the best for that would be a planned development, which allows for those specialized things. A straight condition would just, or a straight rezoning would just be that, a straight rezoning. If they came back in with a replat, which he said they can't do because of the deed restrictions, well, at that point, that's when we could imply conditions or impose conditions, but at a straight rezoning, no. On a PD, that's what those are intended for specialized rezoning.
Oh. Okay.
So how far would that set the developer back if we suggested a PD?
About a month.
Oh.
All right, we're gonna take more public comment. Trinidad's got an emergency and needs to step out. Thank you, sir.
You guys good?
We're gonna take more public comment.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, sir, please.
My
Go
name
right
is
ahead.
Jack Paul. I'm building a new home on Enclave. Really good job by this person right here. I kind of agree with a lot of what she says. But my biggest thing is some of the nomenclature that you show on the is it RS3 or R3? Is it says townhomes, all
Twin
that kind of
homes.
stuff.
Yes, sir.
That's what's got me more concerned probably than any of all this stuff. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but when you got wording like that, that gives people an opportunity to make changes on the fly without letting anybody know. And next thing we know, we got some different stuff going on. I'm not sure that that would happen, but as long as I've been alive, you really can't trust a whole lot of people, so.
I understand. I understand your concern.
Yeah, so that's kind of my biggest concern, and because I don't want to see any small homes go up because like I said, I'm building a nice home right now, and I don't want to see the value go down, or if it does, then the city's going to end up paying for it in the end because I'm not going to pay the taxes on it. But so anyway, that's kind of I just would like to see maybe some of the nomenclature kind of more. In my line, I'm kind of more of a keep it simple, stupid thing. So that's all I've got to say. But good job on this person right here. She did an awesome job. Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else wish to speak on this?
Sean Box. And the reason some of this started is we are one of the builders that have gone over there and started building. And the way it kind of came about is initially talked to Kevin about a lot on Enclave, purchased it, and then through that conversation, he had told us about these lots being patio home lots. So, you know, we got interested, and we have bought some of these lots to build patio homes. And what happened was after we purchased the lot, we took the plans to the city to get permitted. And I mean, it was a patio home lot, and this is where kind of this came up, that they weren't zoned for patio homes. So kind of threw us in a rink. So we ended up staying in section 44 with building the single family, the normal houses, but there is some issues with these being 60-foot lots, not being able to do a zero lot line that we've already encountered on the couple that we're building, because you can't change the lot sizes and you can't change the utilities. I mean, they're pretty much where they're at. Yep. So a couple of the issues, one that we told Kevin, is when you build a house and it's 2,200 square feet, you have to put it in the center, and you have a 5-foot side yard and a 5-foot side yard that are pretty much useless. There's no, I mean, you can't really do anything with that. And then the other big thing is the 40% ratio. When you do that, you know, he's saying the 2,200 is the minimum and you can go up, but the first plan that we sent in was 2,400 square feet to build, but it came back as a patio home. We resubmitted it, and then the ratio came back, and to fit on those lots, it ended up being, I think, 2,186 square feet. So with the 25-foot setback and the 40% ratio with those size lots, if it doesn't get changed, you're going to have 60 lots that are pretty much 2,186, 2,200 square feet. If you move it over to the zero lot line, one, you have a bigger side yard, but you can also come up 15 feet. So I would suggest you change it to the 15 feet. And when you do that, now you can go 2,200 square feet all the way up to 3,000. When we came over there, that's what our intentions were. And I went back and looked at Valley View, the stuff that has been listed and sold, and pretty much Valley View it starts at about 2,000, and there are some that go up to 3,000 square feet. So I think to have it bigger and fit more of what, because I have a lot on Enclave, I'm gonna eventually build a house there. I mean, the intentions would be to be able to build the bigger, and you can go bigger, you just have to go up. You just can't have single story with the ratio. So to give, like us, we don't have any two-story houses, they're all single family. So to be able to give it to where you can get bigger houses and kind of match some of the other stuff on Enclave, you know, the 0 lot line with the 15-foot setback does help get those bigger houses. And yeah, I would oppose the twin homes or duplexes or any of that, because that doesn't fit there. The only thing would just be getting on the 0 lot line so you have a bigger yard and you can build a bigger house with the setback of 15 foot with the ratio.
Thank you, Sean. Go ahead. What you need to.
I think to address the concern that was brought up, instead of just a generic RS3 zone change, you're still a quorum, okay. Let's look at doing a PD, possibly having an RS1 as the underlying zoning district, and then allow for 0 lot lines, and then increase the floor area ratio up to a 0.6. So that would cut out any possibility of this townhome, twin home type scenario that we have. The concern about will allow for a larger home to keep, I guess, land values, property values up high, such that there's not a depress that people are concerned about. So I think that would be our proposal, would be to revise it to the PD with the RS1 underlying zoning, 0.6 floor area ratio, and allow 0 lot line. And then we can have discussion about the 15-foot or 25-foot building setback. The city has supported, when there's no front entry garages, the city in the past on other developments has been supportive of that 15-foot setback. The 25-foot building setback is really their focus to make sure if there is a front entry garage per se, that you don't have the tail end of vehicles hanging out into the right-of-way. So maybe that's something we can come to an agreement on.
Thank you, Russell. We're gonna keep taking public comment. Anyone else want to speak? Going once? Okay, I'm gonna close public comment. I think I have an understanding now of the problem with these lots. I'm not crazy about changing setbacks personally. I don't think that this kind of density is appropriate for this area. RS3 zoning is intended to be transitional, as we've discussed, as Zach explained, and transitional, in my mind, is proximal to the property that's around it, not within the tract. So if you have commercial zoning that's abutting one side and you have single family on the other, this is a transition or a softening of the density between those adjacent tracts. This tract is tucked into the back of a really nice neighborhood that has $1 million homes butting up to it. It's not a thoroughfare that has a lot of traffic, that cars are going to be on the street that create a problem. I think this should be RS1 land, and I think it should have been larger lots to begin with. That's beside the fact at this point. It's been platted. I personally, I'm not crazy about the changing the setbacks, but you know, in the instance of this, with the garages being side entry, which I think is good, maybe relaxing the side setback zoning makes sense. I personally don't like the 15-foot front yard setbacks. I think having houses built that close to the street really changes the the landscape of the neighborhood. And if everything else around this is 25 feet and you get into a one-block stretch of this neighborhood that's 15 feet, it's going to feel different, it's going to look different, it's going to act different, in my opinion. So I cannot support personally changing the zoning to RS3. But I would I guess, consider some sort of zoning that's RS1 with side setback relaxing of some kind. I think that is probably the most appropriate given the circumstances that we're dealing with. And it sounds like that would address most of the concerns of the neighborhood that have come in to speak in opposition to rezoning this. So, does anyone else have thoughts they'd like to share?
I think I pretty much agree with most everything that you just said, Travis. I would support, a PD overlay that sort of alleviates some of the issues that are coming up with the side setbacks and the positioning of the homes to allow for some larger houses. But it doesn't make sense to me to go to a more intensive zoning and change to RS3 in this situation, for just like what we discussed and some of Travis's comments as well. I don't like that option, but I think I could get behind looking at a PD instead.
So and I agree with a lot of what you said, the setbacks and whatnot, but the ratio of the house that you can build on it by changing it to RS3 versus RS1, is that different?
Yeah, RS3 is going to be a 0.6 and RS1 is a 0.4.
Which is another thing they're trying to achieve. That way they can build a bigger house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I agree with the setbacks and the bigger house, because there's bigger houses out there.
Yes.
But I'm also hesitant, like you are, on change to RS3, because the only thing protecting that is their deed restrictions, and we don't have any control over that.
We have no control over that. That's right.
That's out of our hands. So that makes me nervous,
Yeah.
But I understand what you're trying to achieve, but.
All right. Anyone else have thoughts they'd like to share? Sam, Candy? So, I'm not sure what to do here, but to take a motion. If someone wants to make a motion on this.
How do you motion to go forward with a PD?
I think
Is there-
we have to, I think we'd have to
specify
deny
that?
what's proposed to change it to RS3, right?
Yeah, I don't think you could, approve a PD since that wasn't.
Right, presented.
We don't have
So,
it. We don't know what it looks like.
right. So how exactly do we go by doing that if we're
But
stating the
I
PD
think
is
you'd
best
have to
advised?
deny-
If we deny it, they can come back next month with a
Well,
PD.
that's what I was.
Even with the PD, will that change your?
Let's make sure that,
Right.
I don't want to stop this for a year. I want to stop it for a month, if that's what it takes. Yes, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Yes, sir, Mr. Gully.
Previous planning commissions, when people have come forward with a zone change request and there was opposition, in the past, there has been this, someone comes in asking for a CG, and then that gets changed to maybe a CO or a lesser zoning classification. I think you've done that in the past, so we believe on our end, if we could to keep moving, we have a pretty clear proposal to you, going from an we're asking for an RS3. And so what we would like is the PD with the RS1 underlying zoning, and then just changing the floor area ratio, and then allowing for, and however we want to word it, just allowing for zero lot line or something that would ease the building setbacks on one side. So we would believe and would propose that this would be a lesser type zone change than what has been asked for. And so based on previous and prior approvals because this still has to go to city council for approval. So based on previous actions where there's been kind of a zone change at the meeting done, we would maybe ask for that if there's just no against the whole RS3 zoning that maybe.
Okay, so Russell, can I ask a little bit more clarification? So basically, RS1 with underlying, is the underlying zoning, allowing y'all to have a 0 lot line, a 0.6 floor ratio, and what else needed to be in there to basically allow you guys to do that, but keep out, again, the twin townhome condo?
I believe that was it. The other discussion was of building the front setback.
Yes.
But we're fine with where it is, right?
I'll have to defer to Sean for that one. But the main thing is the floor area ratio and the side, the 0 lot line. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think what Russell said is true about where we've had like a certain zoning, and then if the commission wanted to do like a less intensive zoning.
Yes.
That is true, they could do that. I just don't know about the PD, because usually those are conditional and
custom.
you have,
Yeah.
custom conditions to
So
that,
can we-
so.
So we can't deny RS3, and suggest in their RS1 that we make these modifications. We can't do that?
I mean, if you're changing what would normally be the RS1, then I think that's more akin to
Okay.
the PD.
Because even if we approve this, when it comes up again at the very beginning of the meeting next month in the consent agenda, it could get re-denied then, couldn't it?
If,
Worded very carefully because
Yes, sir.
the city council and those guys going to look at it,
You speak at the podium.
they need to know that we're against the RF3.
Yes, sir.
And that they know that it's an RS1 or whatever it is with some changes, those minor changes. So this has to be worded very carefully. We
Yes,
just
sir.
can't throw it out there and say, hey, we're not, because in my terms, we need to, as the motion should say, the motion should be, we're declining that RS3. And I agree that we don't want it to be a year thing, maybe just a month, but
Right.
we need to make it very clear to the city council that we're not in agreement to making this change.
Yes, sir. We agree. Thank you. Yes, Brandon.
so the
I'm going to
rehearing,
close public comment, by the way.
so there's a rehearing condition in the zoning ordinance, and it says to rehear a request, let's see, on the same tract of land within 1 year following the final decision on any previous request, unless the planning commission is specifically directed by majority vote of city council to hear it.
So we can table it.
Well, if you table it, it comes back on the same, I
Can
mean, the
they-
application.
can they withdraw
doesn't
their
change.
request?
I think that's what I'm leaning towards, is they need to withdraw their request, and so we don't have this year
Yeah.
provision, and you don't also have to deny it.
Okay.
But one of the other conditions is the subsequent request is for more restrictive zoning. I don't know, is that what would?
I would say this is more restrictive.
Land development would be more restrictive, the way,
From what's proposed, change to, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the conditions where you could hear it within less than a year if you deny it here.
Well, what I don't want to do is create an unnecessary delay. But I do think that what's proposed is not, I don't think, agreeable or acceptable to the planning commission. So it sounds like everyone wants to go in the same direction. We're just trying to figure out how to move forward so that we can rehear this pretty quickly and not have to wait. So is your recommendation to withdraw it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the applicant's, I mean, they would have to request that, but
Mr. Collins, would you be willing to withdraw it for revisions?
Okay. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to withdraw it from that perspective. I just think that I would like to make sure that you guys look at this, because when we started the process to a year and a half ago.
Yes, sir.
We really kind of thought RS1 would allow us to put a 0 lot line home in.
Right.
And so you might want to look at taking the 0 lot line out of the twin home thing, because I think that's what freaked everybody out.
Yes, sir.
So realistic, I mean. yeah,
Actually,
it's fine.
Kevin, I don't think it's the 0 lot line that freaked everybody out. It's the 25-foot lots.
Yeah, I mean.
And that was sent out in the notices. And that,
I didn't even know.
if I saw
was
that
even-
in a notice, I'd freak out.
Yeah, it was certainly not our intention, and so,
No,
yeah,
I-
we're happy to do that. We have been, we would not want to go a long time, so if we could just get to.
Yes, sir.
That part, yeah, we'd be fine.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so the applicant has withdrawn the application.
Yeah. Just to be clear for the minutes.
Yes, sir.
For next time, could you take a motion to accept the withdrawal?
Yes, would someone like to make a motion? All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the applicant's withdrawal of this case for this meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's 6-0. Okay. Thank you all, and thanks for those that came in. I know it's a little bit difficult and cumbersome, but your attendance is definitely appreciated. Okay, next item is Z2302, 402 North Bryant, SMD3, a request for approval of a rezoning from the light manufacturing zoning district to the general commercial zoning district, being .951 acres located at 402 North Bryant at the northeast intersection of West 4th Street and North Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sherry Bailey, Senior Planner. As you indicated, this is a request for a rezoning from light manufacturing to general commercial. It's on just slightly less than an acre. I'm sure you're all familiar with the property. It is where the old medical office building is. That building will be demolished, and the applicant is proposing to construct 2 double drive-through retail sales and service buildings, and we'll get to the proposed conceptual design of that in just a moment. This is in District 3, Harry Thomas's district, and it is in the downtown neighborhood. This is their concept. One of the double drive-through areas is for a quick lube type of use, and the other one is for coffee and small hand food products. Combining those 2 uses in the same design on the same lot is not uncommon in a lot of areas. They seem to blend well together, and the applicant is proposing to do the same thing. We sent out 17 notices. We did not receive any in favor or any against. Staff is supporting this, and the reason is that we moved from the downtown, the CBD area, which is 1 block away, into that 1 block of general commercial on Bryant, and then immediately into the light manufacturing. North Bryant, as you're well aware, is a state highway. It carries a lot of traffic. Having commercial along that is much more in keeping with the movement of traffic and the kind of traffic in the area, and moving the manufacturing out of it eventually and moving general commercial in is something that the city would like to see. The comprehensive plan does list this area as downtown and commercial, so this is in keeping with that also. And when we looked at it, we saw that it was compatible with the comprehensive plan. ML is not consistent with the bulk of the uses that are in there, but the general commercial is. The surrounding uses, as I indicated, are more retail, sales, and service type of uses. They're not light manufacturing uses. We don't anticipate that there'll be any other changes or impacts on the property. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from light manufacturing to general commercial on the property listed as 402 North Bryant. Are there any questions from the planning?
Could you go back to the site plan, please? Sherry?
Surely.
Okay. So 2 buildings instead of 1?
Yes.
And a lot of drive-through, it looks like. Yep. Okay. Does anyone have questions for the staff? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case, please state your name and address or single-member district, please.
Russell Gully, SKG, Single Member District 3 for this one. Would just ask for your approval of this one as presented and would be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Anyone have questions for Mr. Gully? Thank you. Thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment and take comments from my colleagues or a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Right-of-way abandonment, 100 to 300 East 4th Street, SMD 4. Request to abandon approximately 20 feet by 507 feet unimproved alleys in blocks 39 and 40, Miles Edition, between 4th and 5th Street, and North Oaks, North Magdalen, and Pecan Streets.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, the request is for abandonment of 2 alleys in blocks 39 and 40. To give you an idea of what is there, actually, in block 39, there is no alley that was ever constructed. In block 40, there was a dirt alley area that existed for a while. In block 40, there's also a large drainage area that traverses across from 5th to 4th and carries a lot of drainage for that area. There's nothing that's presently built on those properties except for a billboard sign. The property owners, the majority of the property owners are Mr. Pfluger, who's made the request, and the state of Texas, which has the one set of tracks that are still being used periodically. And so those are the 2 property owners involved. We did notify the surrounding property owners as is required by the ordinance. And we got back no one against it. There were a couple of people that had questions. And then there was one group that was very concerned about the fact that on lot 40, there is an existing well that monitors past usage of a DDT that was done in the area 30 years ago, and that well is still there and monitoring it. But that well is also just on the edge of that drainage area, so we don't believe that well will be impacted. All of the utilities are in the streets. There are no utilities that are in the alley. In looking at the rationale for the abandonment of the alleys, alleys are not constructed and are not used for anything. There are no existing utilities in the alley. Again, there was no response from those that we sent out public notice to. Closing the entire alley would in fact allow the property owner, the majority property owner, to combine his lots and to open his availability for maybe using that property that's presently not being used and hasn't really ever been used. Staff is proposing approval of the proposed abandonment and vacation of all the public alleys within blocks 39 and 40 of Miles Addition, subject to 3 conditions of approval. Number 1, that the procedure that is required under city ordinance is followed for the abandonment and vacation of the property, including the verification of recorded deeds, abandonment of the city's claim to the entirety of the abandoned alley shall be provided and recorded, and the offer of the property to the adjoining property owners, and their either agreement to purchase that property or to not purchase the property, let the city know. With that, are there any questions from the board?
Could you go back to the aerial view of these
Certainly.
tracks, please? Perfect. Okay, you mentioned Mr. Pfluger and the state. Are there any other property owners that are impacted by this alley abandonment?
The only one is the small one down at the bottom where the billboard is, that tiny piece of property where the billboard is owned, but
that's
they
not
are not
abutting-
adjacent to the
Yeah, they're
alley.
not abutting the alley.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have questions for the staff? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully, SKG. The billboard is a co-sister company of Mr. Pfluger, so they're pretty much one and the same. On condition one, there, and Ms. Bailey brought it up, there's an existing drainage way that traverses across Block 40.
Yes, sir.
And this really isn't necessarily the venue for the discussion, but we'd like to go to staff, most likely operations, and city engineer and have a conversation with them about the likelihood of some sort of, that to us, that appears to be a significant drainage way that needs to be under the city's purview of ownership. And so what we'd like to do is have that conversation with engineering and operations, make sure that's something they want to do, and then potentially use that land area kind of towards the calculation of the exchange of land. And so on one, if we could just, and maybe the verbiage is loose enough, but as part of this, you know, we know that there'll be some fee to be charged for the land, but we would like then also for if
An offset.
An offset, if you will, thank you, for if that does come about. And then item 3, if we could ask for 36 months, that's the same time frame as a plat approval. The intent is to move forward with this at all haste. Mr. Pfluger is wanting to move forward and get this done, but we know how life and things that happen, sometimes they drag out. So if we could just do 36 months on the second part, just so it would kind of line up with the plat approval. So once we meet with staff, figure out the disposition of that drainage way, we'll come forward most likely with a plat on these properties.
Okay.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have questions for Mr. Gully? Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case, please come forward.
My name is Whitney Gibson, and we have a concern about the alley, and that alley sits right next to the drainage system that goes through all these lots here.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's a railway that runs through there. So what is the protection? I mean, I understand that Mr. Pfluger and the railway are co-owners with some of that property. So in the event that there is some type of accident there, what is the protection of anybody who may own that property in the future? Because it seems to me that alleyway is, although it's not developed, it's also providing a little bit of protection for whoever those property owners are, if in the event that there is an accident from the railway. That's my concern about it.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this?
Thank you. I'm Lee Pfluger. The reason that's so wide for the state of Texas there is that there's an abandoned spur on the south of the regular spur that goes to Hirschfeld.
Yes, sir.
There's an abandoned spur there, and that's the reason that's so wide, and would afford pretty good protection on that south side there. And I think what Russell talked about is getting this drainage ditch designated for city control and control and approval is very positive. We hadn't talked about it until today, but that's really a good way to go on this property. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Appreciate it.
Mike Belzell, Five Star Electric. We owned on Block 44, 10 and 9.
Okay.
If you're talking about the south spur that's abandoned, that's underneath the street right next to my building. That would be on 4th Street.
Okay.
So does that mean their property line would end at my building? Or are we keeping 4th Street there along, that says the...
We're not changing streets.
Okay.
We're not abandoning any streets. It's just the alleyway. If
The
you look at-
concern of it was him saying the south, and it was underneath that, so.
Okay.
There's a south-south spur.
All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close. Yes, ma'am.
Since there's a well there, I didn't realize that was there. There's a well there that is, people are, who's monitoring that well?
I don't know.
The EPA monitors that
The
well.
EPA is monitoring
Yes.
it?
Yes. It is a monitoring well, yes.
Prior contamination or?
Yes.
And I just want to point out that I am one of the people who who sent a couple emails to Miss Bailey, and I made a phone call to the office and left a message, and none of those 3 were answered or addressed, so.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know.
I've been sick.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment and take comments from my colleagues or a motion.
Move to approve with the one change to modify condition 3 to allow for 36 months.
You had concerns about condition 1 as well, Mr. Gully?
Yeah, and maybe staff feels that the verbiage is loose enough that it would allow for that.
Do you mind going back to the conditions, please?
Defer to Brandon for that one.
Well, so Russell, if we reach an agreement for like you're talking about a drainage or some portion that the city would keep?
Well, there's some additional land that Mr. Pfluger would dedicate to the city that is currently owned by Mr. Pfluger that he would contribute.
Yeah. I mean, if we reached an agreement on that, then of course, any portion of that that would be abandoned wouldn't be included in the assessment. So, I mean, I don't think condition 1 needs to change now. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing that the city will accept it though, if that's what you're.
Right, no, we wanted it loose enough that if there was a conversation, there's some additional land outside of the alley that we're asking to be abandoned that Mr. Pfluger would apply towards that would be some sort of land swap potentially, if you will, that Mr. Pfluger owns. It would be credit, if you will, towards the right-of-way that he's asking to be abandoned.
If it's outside the right-of-way, I mean, I think city council would have to accept the dedication. And so, I mean, I'm not sure about grading.
Ms. Bailey, did you have an image or something that kind of showed?
It's got an aerial.
The aerial there?
Yeah, go back one more.
The aerial.
Right there.
Can you kind of hide, does your pointer work
By the
towards?
pointer thingy?
Yes, right there.
I mean, so Brandon, does condition 1, I mean, does that restrict the ability to negotiate any further? I mean, that
No, I
that can
don't
be
think so.
negotiated after the fact, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like this deal with the dedication would be something kind of outside this. I just don't feel comfortable saying we could like give them a credit for this because it's just a totally separate deal in my mind. But
Okay. So we have a motion to accept with a change on condition 3 to 36 months instead of 24.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Item A, CU 2301, 1601 Kansas Avenue, SMD 1, a request for approval of a conditional use to allow a short-term rental in the single-family residential zoning district located at 1601 Kansas Avenue.
Good morning, Ray Lineberry, planner. And this is a short-term rental on 1601 Kansas Avenue. It is RS1 zoning in District 1, Tommy Hebert, in the Rio Vista neighborhood. Pictures to show that it does have the 2 off-street parking, and it is a corner lot, so the other picture is showing going down the street. We did receive 3 more in opposed over the weekend, so there's a total of 4 opposed, and we did receive one in favor.
Okay?
But 20 notices were mailed out. There will be no adverse impacts in the area. There's no other short-term rental within 500 square feet, or not square feet, sorry, 500 feet. The rental would be in RS1 zoning. There's no foreseen adverse effects. We do need more short-term rentals in the Rio Vista area. And staff is recommending approval with the 3 conditions: that they maintain the parking, they obtain a certificate of occupancy, and they do annual fire inspections. And the note is that they are required a renewal in 1 year, and then it's every 2 years after that, and proof that the hotel tax has been paid and is not delinquent.
All right. Thank you. Anyone have questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Hi, I'm Martha Lewis. I live at 1610 Kansas Avenue. So I live only 2 houses down from that house.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so ASU is going to be the one that's going to be taken in this part of this area, correct? Now, that's what we heard, that ASU is the one that's funding all the funding in that corner, and that it's going to be something that's going to be related to ASU, and that's what we're more concerned about. We have the school buses that come around in that area. We have children that are running down on that street. Once y'all opened up the back part of that Kansas area back there to Idaho, or is it Iowa or something? And so once y'all opened up that back part there, we've had a lot of crazy people driving back there. There's one young man that drives a really fast car. First he was called, the cops was called on him for motorcycle, and he was under 15. And then shortly after that, he was called for driving a go-kart. And this all happened within 5 years. And now he's running in a car. So if ASU is going to be doing something over there in that corner, and where are they getting the funding from? Because they didn't have anything in that house.
As far as staff knows, this is a single owner that actually owns the house a couple houses down from this one, and is just looking to have a short-term.
The area that you're describing is not owned by Angelo State.
No, not by Angel, not by
You said ASU?
Right, that they're the ones that are going to be doing the rental there.
No, the applicant is a single, a
Okay, but
married couple.
it's a 3-bedroom house, 2 baths, and 1 kitchen. So how can it be like an apartment? Just because they put the extra driveway doesn't mean that it's going to be 2 apartments.
No.
No, it's not an apartment. It's like a hotel. It's an Airbnb. A family can come and stay.
There's not going to be
a couple of nights.
Oh, okay.
There's
So
not
that's
going to be
what
any
they're doing.
change.
Okay.
There's not going to be any change to the property from
So why
the,
did
from
they
the
need
street.
two driveways then? One on the side and then one on the front?
I'm not
No,
sure.
they just need two parking spots. Two cars have to be able to fit in their driveway.
Yeah, two cars fit on the sideway. And once you go up into the garage, then you have 4 cars.
The additional parking, I believe they did prior to even applying for the special, or short-term rental.
No, they did it about 2 weeks ago. So if they applied for this, it was longer before that.
I don't know
And what the
additional
people
parking we're talking
said, the guy that put the driveway, he said their explanation was that the people would always hit the lower part of their car when going up the driveway.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
they're still driving up the driveway, still using the
Okay.
same vehicles going up the driveway.
I can't speak to why they poured the driveway, but I think that's probably a good thing to keep the cars off the street. If they're anticipating that they may have more than one vehicle.
Oh, but it's not just kids. It's also people where are they from? A lot of the residents are good fellow,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? And they drive like a bat out of hell just because they come from another state. And they come here to San Angelo, and we're not that fast.
Right.
And where does it take to go 80 miles an hour to go from 3 miles from this side of San Angelo to 3 miles on that side of San Angelo?
Right.
There's no reason for that,
I agree.
okay?
Yes,
So what they're doing is they want to do a bed and breakfast?
No, ma'am. No, what they've applied to do is to rent their house on a short-term basis.
Okay, so a
less
short
than-
term is
less
how
than-
long?
Less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So,
So it's going to be kind of like a vacation home,
Yes,
something like that?
exactly. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So what does that change in our taxes? It won't impact us at all?
the change is that they have to pay hotel occupancy tax when,
But doesn't that make that like a commercial?
No.
Or a business?
No.
And
Okay.
the people that would be staying in a short-term rental are typically vetted by the owner. The owner goes through a whole process, making sure that the home's up to code on fire safety, et cetera. So it's actually much safer than a traditional rental if you just had somebody renting a home next door to you.
and what we're doing is granting a permit for them to operate as a short-term rental for 12 months. And
Well,
one of the
golly, you should have
conditions.
gone over there when they had all those ducks and geese and chickens and I don't know what else they had in their
So
backyard.
one of the conditions of this permit is that they come back in 12 months if they want to continue to operate as a short-term rental. And if there have been police called out to the house or code
That
compliance
house
issues,
specifically.
then, to that home, then that is discussed and considered in the process of renewing
Okay.
that application.
Okay,
So,
well,
and the
that
intent
area-
is, if you have problems with this house after it's granted a short-term rental, if the tenants that go over are having kegger parties and the police are showing up frequently, then it's gonna get shut down. We're not gonna renew the permit in 12 months.
Okay, so we gotta wait 12 months before y'all decide to shut it down?
Yes, ma'am. If
Legally,
if we
yes.
approve it, yes.
Okay. And that area used to be a retirement community,
Yes, ma'am.
so I've been there 23 years, going on 24 years. So I've
Actually,
watched it.
I'm familiar with this area. We've had a discussion about property that's adjacent to this site in very recent months, in the development of that area. So I'm very
Well-
familiar with this area, and it's a nice neighborhood.
The only problems that we have there is the fact that that street is divided in half, Kansas is. One side has electricity when the lights and everything goes out. The other side doesn't have any.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's only because these people are hooked up to the hospital. That's the only reason why they've got electricity and we don't, you
Okay.
know. But I still say no, because then we're gonna have a bunch of strangers over there, we won't know who's there, and
Yes, ma'am.
we've had people vandalize, coming in through the alleys,
Right.
so I still don't go for that.
Okay.
That's
I
too many
understand.
strangers.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, does anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment, and anyone want to share their thoughts or make a motion?
There are quite a few longer-term rentals in that neighborhood. And so I do feel like the short-term rental fits the criteria, especially, again, the owner is probably hoping for nurses or whatnot, being that close proximity to the Shannon site. So I'm going to motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. All right, CU 2302, 225 Oakwood Street, SMD 3. Request for approval of conditional use to allow short-term rental in the single-family residential zoning district located at 225 Oakwood Street.
Hello, Rayline Berry again. This is at 225 Oakwood Street, and it is a short-term rental in the RS1 zoning, District 3, Harry Thomas, the Glenmore neighborhood. Picture of the front of the house. The driveway can fit 2 cars. There were 14 notices mailed out. We have not received any in favor or opposed. No changes to the existing structure. There are not any active short-term rentals within 500 feet. It is in RS1, single family. There's no foreseen adverse effects in the environment. The short-term rental will address the need for more short-term rentals in the Glenmore neighborhood. And it does not impact the home. It is still a single-family residence. Staff is recommending approval with the same 3 conditions: that they maintain their parking, they obtain the certificate of occupancy, and they get an annual fire inspection, with the same note of they are required to renew in 1 year and then every 2 years after that, and proof that they are paying the hotel tax and are not delinquent.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone have questions for the staff? All right, open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment and take a motion, or?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address whole comments to the dais, and begin by stating their name and address, single member district. Please limit all comments to less than 3 minutes. I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Morning, folks. Tony Jones. I work in single member District 6, and I'm a county resident. So a bit of historical perspective here. In the early 2000s, Mr. Gully, his firm, several other engineering firms in the city of San Angelo developed, over the period of about 1.5 years, developed a stormwater manual for the city of San Angelo. Freese and Nichols had been hired to come up with this manual, and the one that they delivered at the time would have cost the city of San Angelo, upon implementation, about $10 million a year. Okay? Boilerplate design brought here. Ms. Grindstaff at the time, Mr. Clinton at the time were all in favor of this stormwater manual. Staff at the time was recommending we adopt that stormwater manual at the cost then of about $10 million a year. So after 1.5 years of work of taking out of the stormwater manual what was not applicable to San Angelo, Texas, we brought that number down to about $2 million for the first several years. Is that right, Russell, give or take? So we went from implementing a manual that would have cost the taxpayers $10 million a year. We got it pulled down to the things that were applicable to San Angelo, Texas, to about $2 million a year. Now, I'm sure it's gone up since then. So a bit of history for you there. Okay, so we spent 1 year, the private sector, Freese and Nichols, of course, they were paid, staff, they were paid. The rest of us spent about 1 year helping develop this manual for the city of San Angelo, and it was ultimately adopted by the council. During those negotiations, it was imperative at that time, it was very clear that from a development standpoint that all of these stormwater requirements were going to cost a lot of money over the life of this entire endeavor. And so one of the things was ownership of these ponds that we eventually were going to have to be required to put in these subdivisions, okay? These ponds will collect water so the sediment can settle out before it runs into the stormwater system of San Angelo, Texas. A decision was made at that time not to use the Red Arroyo. We didn't have very forward thinkers at the time in terms of planning. The city decided, nope, can't do that, can't buck TCEQ, can't buck the federal government. Well, Fort Worth got it done. I mean, staff's all the time comparing us to other cities. There are many cities that have taken drainage easements or drainage structures like the Red Arroyo and incorporated that into their stormwater, but the city decided, no, we can't do that. They didn't have the nerve to approach they just didn't have the nerve to go that route. So they decided we're going to take all these little businesses, Chick-fil-A, all of these new businesses, and we're going to require them to contain underneath their parking lots all of this stormwater. It'll never go into the public reservoir, okay? So all of that stormwater is trapped. Developers and new subdivisions are going to be required to put in these ponds. So I've put in the first couple in the last couple of years. The understanding all along was, since day one, that the city would take ownership of these ponds. That recognition was from the council, staff, everybody involved, that the city was going to take ownership of these ponds. Okay? Fast forward a couple of years ago, I decided to put in my first pond. I requested a meeting to have an understanding about, A, is this pond design okay for me over here on this section of land? In that very same meeting, the very same day, fourth floor was there, legal was there, engineering was there, Shane was there, operations, okay? And I stepped out of my role as a developer with one pond into this other role that is a businessman and developer in San Angelo. Also caring about my industry, I said, okay, we all agree still at this point that you're going to take ownership of these ponds we develop. The consensus was yes, we will take ownership of them. They will become part of the streets, gutters, sewers that y'all put in at the city's design, and then we'll take ownership with the rest of it. So fast forward a couple of, so I got my agreement renewed a couple of years ago. I put in 2 ponds. They now belong to the city, but staff has decided that we don't want them. We can't maintain them. We can't afford to maintain them. So what that is going to force the development community to do, and oh, by the way, if we put these ponds in, we're going to own them in perpetuity. The maintenance, the cleaning, the liability in perpetuity. Well, I can't do that. I can't burden my grandchildren with ownership of this pond that the city should maintain that required me to put it in. So there's problems afoot, okay, with this stormwater issue and the ownership of these ponds. And if you think that the sidewalk debacle was bloody, then this will basically kill the freedom, our freedom to come in here and develop these lots, build on them and sell them. We will have to burden each one of those buyers with a homeowner's fee.
Yep.
That's where we're headed. And so the plat that you looked at first that belongs to Mr. Rosenberg, it had a pond on it. And my question has been for several days, who's going to own that pond? Maybe Eric and his partners have a plan for that, and that's all fine and well. But I can assure you that Mr. Planning is going to take that as a stencil for every other development that goes into the city of San Angelo. And so there's problems afoot, and you'll see it. And so they want us to put in parks
Yes.
That's in the making. They want us to dedicate land and build parks. I don't know who's going to own those. But we've got that, and now we have stormwater ponds that are becoming an issue. And so I just wanted to make the Planning Commission aware of that.
Tony, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chad Decker, builder. I guess I probably represent all single-member districts because I've got a lot scattered throughout the city. But one thing I wanted to mention is years ago, there was a lot of conversation started about affordable housing. And there's been lots of steps that have been taken over the years with COSA DC and helping us with incentives and things like that. But I think the city spent several $100,000 on a housing study, and it talked about how many affordable homes that we were short throughout the city. And so at that time, I started on a quest to start building some affordable housing, and primarily in the Lakeview part of town. But one thing that I will tell you that we all have to take into account when we're doing affordable housing, which apparently we still are in dire need of, just like Tony Jones just alluded to, on Eric's new development, if you come in and say, well, you know, first of all, most of these buyers are doing everything that they can get qualified. We cut back on our profits, do everything that we can to make the homes as affordable as possible. But then if you come back on them and say, oh, by the way, you're going to have a $100, $200, $500 a year homeowners association fee, that will completely kill any development that you have in the affordable housing market. So just want to make that point.
Thank you, Chad. Well, I can speak from my understanding and prior experience that stormwater drainage is it's an issue. And I guess more specifically, when development's occurring, the city and the other property owners don't want the improvements that are being made to a tract of land to impact other tracts of land in a detrimental manner as it relates to stormwater. Tony alluded to the many years that I think our city operated without an adequate plan. And so we're now going to be faced with probably dealing with absorbing some of those issues as we try to come up with a solution. But we've got to come up with a reasonable solution. And the idea of using the Red Arroyo, as crazy as that sounds, I think makes sense. I'd love for the city to look into that. But that's not my job. It's not my responsibility. So we're here to help in any way that we can with that and hope that we can reach a reasonable solution because it is an important problem for our entire community. Does anyone else wish to speak? All right, I'm going to close public comment. The last item, well, we got a couple more here. We've got the planning manager's report.
Well, the only thing I have is that we have heard the development community and that we do need to talk about stormwater management.
Yes.
And so when Kevin Pate, our city engineer, was here, we agreed that we're going to start working towards a meeting and invite the developers and the stakeholders to let's figure out what the solution is.
That's great.
Don't know what that solution is yet, but I do think there is definitely some history that others can teach us and try to get us to where we need to be.
Yes.
So I think that's all I have.
That's wonderful. Okay. Future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, March 20th, the East Mezzanine of City Hall, 72 West College Avenue, San Angelo, Texas. Adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. It is 10:35.